Hi, a dear Facebook friend of mine put me in touch recently with Sherry Holley, a niece to Buddy Holly, the fantastic Buddy Holly. And all of a sudden I found that I was in a position to have a little video chat with her, something I hadn't totally expected, but it was absolutely fantastic. Sherry's a lovely, lovely person, and she was very amenable throughout the entire process. I'm not really geared up at this moment in time in terms of cameras and stuff like that, so the quality, I'm afraid, isn't brilliant, but I hope you enjoy hearing our little chat, and this is hopefully going to be the first of several Paul's Twang Chat shows. But in the meantime, enjoy Sherry Holley, fantastic person, absolutely lovely, and of course the niece to the iconic Buddy. Thank you so much for sparing a little bit of time for a little chat. Really appreciate.
I'm excited.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. I certainly am. For the sake of anybody who may be watching this at a later stage, if I can just sort of leap in initially. Sherry is the niece to Buddy Holly, and Buddy was christened Charles Hardin Holly, born in 1936, who was the fourth kid to Lawrence and Ella, the youngest one by quite a lot actually. It was quite a musical family, wasn't it, Sherry?
Yes, it started out with my grandmother and her sister Allie, who were twins, and they used to sing around a town called Vernon, Texas.
Yeah, and Buddy's brothers, Travis and Larry, your father, they were quite influential too, weren't they, in the early days for Buddy, I think?
Yes, they really were. My dad played guitar and violin, and Travis played the guitar and the accordion.
And again, going to those very early years when you were just a mere tot, really. My understanding is that in his sort of early to mid-teens, Buddy would get involved with his brothers doing talent shows and gigs and this kind of stuff. And then, of course, Buddy, being Buddy, well into the music and enjoying, as a lot of us do, the passion of music and playing. He sort of got playing with a lot of guys at his high school. And then that moved on fairly quickly, it would appear, to local radio shows, TV, and then, of course, the Buddy and Bob show and relationship.
Yes, that was pretty amazing how it all started. Kind of started with country music and then just blossomed into the rock and roll and the blues and all that.
Yeah, I was reading up, as you would expect, on a few of these details, of reading an excellent biography right now, actually. And so in those very early days, Sherry, it was essentially country, but then my understanding was that Buddy and a lot of people around that time were getting more drawn into this whole new sort of blues kind of thing going on. This surreptitious gatherings and sitting in cars secretly listening to these radio stations of what was black blues music.
Right. There's a story about that.
Oh, okay.
Michael Buddy used to sit around with the guys, and they would listen to some of those guys in Louisiana playing the blues. And I'm sure that's where he picked up some of those blues licks that he did.
And it must have been quite an exciting time for Buddy, and again a lot of his friends sort of keying into this blues music, having had a background of fairly straight down the line country music.
Yes, that's where it all started out. My dad and Travis, they did a lot of country music.
My understanding was that a young lad by the name of Elvis happened to come along, and literally, actually, because he came to Lubbock, didn't he, on a few occasions. And I mean, Elvis was a bit of a game changer.
Right, and he actually did a show where Buddy was on that same venue. It was at the Lubbock Fair Park Coliseum.
That must have been quite something. I guess you were too young to know what was going on at that stage.
I didn't get to go to things like that. Unfortunately, I wish I could have. I was just a little girl, but
Yeah,
oh, I wish I could have.
great times though. I was quite interested reading through this biography that it strikes me that the family was quite close and that there was a lot of help from Larry, your dad, and Travis, and their father in nurturing and helping where they could.
That's correct. My dad bought Buddy a guitar, and Travis taught him how to play a lot of the guitar part that he learned from the beginning.
Oh right, and of course again maybe we can touch on this in a little bit later on. But of course, Buddy developed quite an interesting style of playing too, very much on the downstroke for rhythm and stuff like that, which is as a musician I find that quite interesting too because it changes the dynamics of the song, doesn't it?
It does, and that was his own thing that he did. He just self-taught pretty much.
Yeah, brilliant. I was quite interested to read, and I don't know if this is true. Maybe you can let me know if it is. But you mentioned Larry lending some or getting a guitar for Buddy. I think there was a point where I don't know if it's just before or just after the Decca contract. But I think Buddy excitedly approached Larry and say, "Hey, I need a bit of money to sort of kind of help push me further forward." And my understanding reading the biography was Larry was thinking, okay, about $50 kind of thing. And then Buddy said it was about $1,000.
Yeah, I think that, in those days it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, but my dad wanted to do it, and he definitely helped him with the money situation and a lot of things.
And they rehearsed at your father's successful Lubbock ceramic tiles premises as well. So it was very much a family kind of thing, wasn't it?
Right. It's pretty amazing. He would practice in my dad's Holley tile, and the place still exists, and I take people over there every once in a while.
Is it still a tile business?
It's a gentleman owns it, and I think he does some kind of printing or something there. It's an entirely different business.
But visitors to it can obviously still use a little bit of imagination to figure out the exciting stuff that went on there all those years ago. Oh, sounds fantastic. Between two early Decca sessions, I think that's when Buddy got to check out Norman Petty. And
right, just after the Decca thing.
Was
and,
it?
It was kind of a magic there.
They kind of all gelled.
Well, Buddy had heard about them, and they made the connection, and he went up there and he started doing the songs his way up there instead of the way that everybody at Decca wanted him to do it.
Yeah. And yes, the impression I got was that there was quite a bit of a sort of friction, I suppose, in a way, between Buddy and Decca, again, in the fact that, he was obviously full of creativity and great ideas, great music, and this at the time was a very buzzy period in rock and roll, and he was frustrated, I guess, by the way in which Decca kind of wanted him to operate.
Right, it was, they kind of countrified it.
Oh, right.
They're a great company, but countrifying it with Buddy, it just didn't work, So that's why he wanted to do what he wanted to do the way he could do it.
Yeah. But he got on quite well with Norman, did he? With Norman Petty?
Right, they kind of had a magic, and Norman was a perfectionist on sound, and his musical engineering and everything. We just all clicked.
And he kind of brought out the best in Buddy and the other musicians working with Buddy at the time, I guess.
That's correct.
Yeah, yeah. I read a little article actually on Norman Petty, and I don't know if this is true, but I found it quite interesting, or slightly amusing actually, in the fact that it stated that Larry, who had experience in the end of the Second World War, I understand that there was a situation where Larry was in some kind of foxhole with water up to his head, and he kind of woke up with this giant snail walking over his face. I don't know if that's true or not, but he basically said he had the same sort of feeling when he met Norman Petty. Is that a load of rubbish, or is that true?
Well, it's true. He just, it was kind of a new episode in life. And so I'd say, yeah, it was everything was kind of a surprise, but it had its magical moments there.
Yes, yes. And of course, That'll Be the Day was one of the, well, I mean, at Norman Petty's studio in Clovis, most of Buddy's tracks were recorded, weren't they?
A lot of them were, yes. It's amazing how it sounds there and everything. It's the studio is still there, and I take people over there, and we do the tours over there every so often.
Whoa, it's still going, is it? Wow.
It's not really running, but they do it kind of as a museum type thing where they show people how it all happened and everything.
Wow. And I believe That'll Be the Day was obviously one of the tracks, and a cracking track. Everybody knows That'll Be the Day, obviously. But my understanding there was that was one of the, it was at the tail end of a session about 3 a.m. in the morning, and I think they had about 4 takes on it, and Norman Petty said, great.
Right, they did all the recording at night time over there. One reason, because of the sound, they didn't want the cars and noises outside. There's a road right in front of there, and they didn't want to hear all that. So he did all the recording at night time.
Oh right, I see. Yeah. It's interesting just to get a feel for kind of what went on there. It must have been such a special period. And again, there was another thing I saw there that demonstrating, I suppose, how close a family affair it was too, in the fact that I think Larry, Travis and their father helped Norman Petty with an echo chamber. Is that
right? My dad worked on that, and it was pretty amazing. It was kind of deep, and I actually fell into it once. So.
Whoa! So
it's a wonderful sound.
So was it in the ground, or is it like a big tank?
Yeah, it was kind of you didn't realize you were stepping off into it, especially if it was dark. And so that's when I had my little accident in it.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's quite a thing to say, though, I suppose, to say I fell into Norman Petty's echo chamber. That must be quite a thing to...
Right, I think it's neat.
That's brilliant. Wow. And again, this was, for people, anybody watching this now, I mean, this was a million miles from the world of digital echoes and stuff. This was really... this was the start, wasn't it? This was absolute start.
Right, and you had to get everything just right. No punch-ins or nothing. Everybody, musicians and singer, you had to get the song just right. That's why they did it over several times.
And so if we moved on then, really, we had the Decca contract and stuff like that. I mean, 1956, 57, things were really, really buzzing. And then, of course, 58, I suppose, is probably the classic rock and roll year, isn't it, really, Sherry? In terms of, yeah, and lots of acts, but of course Buddy, he had a pretty full diary then.
Right, really full. I don't know how they did it. They just moved gig to gig.
I mean, it's just quite sensational, really. 58, he joined the America's Greatest Teenage Recording Stars Tour with Alan Freed. Holly recorded Rave On, then went on the Ed Sullivan Show for Oh Boy. Oh, and then of course Hawaii and Australia.
Right, and he was really accepted over there too.
He came over here to the UK.
Right, and that was awesome. I've seen some of the places over there where he performed, and that just means a lot.
Very, very special. Oh yeah, the same month his debut solo album Buddy was released, and then more Alan Freed. Then of course Decca released That'll Be the Day, and then just as a one other item amongst many, of course he got married.
Yes, that was really a whirlwind experience, and he walked in there and he met the girl of his dreams, and he said, I'm going to marry that girl, and what he did really quick.
That was quite incredible, wasn't it? Love at first sight, I guess, Sherry.
So, he was the receptionist at Pure Southern, and they just fell in love.
How lovely. Lovely story, isn't it?
Yes.
So going back very briefly to Norman Petty, I find this bit quite interesting because years and years and years and years ago, I was listening to Love is Strange, and I was absolutely blown away by that. I mean, it's Buddy's haunting melody line and the way in which he sung the tune, and then of course that incredible wash sort of backing that I guess Norman did, and Norman did a lot of the overdubs for Buddy, didn't he?
Yes.
And for the sake of the viewers, the reason why that happened was that Buddy bought an Ampex tape recorder from Norman Petty, and in his apartment, just, on guitar and just singing, was going through some of his own tunes, some cover versions, but sadly, his untimely death meant that they didn't go any further. So I think it was, who gave permission for Norman to do that? Was it somebody in your family, I guess?
Probably so. My grandmother and granddaddy were pretty much in charge of things like that in those days.
Yeah, I think he did quite a good job. I don't know. How do you feel about those tracks?
I really like them. I think they're really nice.
One thing that, as a musician and a fan of Buddy, I can't help but just sort of run through really the fact that he's obviously a massive influence on the musicians who came out after that. Everyone from Bruce Springsteen to Dylan to the Byrds, the Beatles, you name it, they've all were into Buddy in the early days, and I guess they were inspired by his playing style, his singing, even his hiccup, singing that he does, and I guess probably the fact that he too was, rather than a well-groomed sort of guy like Elvis, who was, essentially on his own. Okay, he had backing band, but on his own. Buddy was very much in a traditional band setup, wasn't he? With drums, bass, guitar, vocals. And I think that, I guess that probably inspired a lot of people. Just that alone, really.
That's correct. It started out like that, and just amazing how that I think his music was before its time.
Oh yeah.
He was always wanting to create new things and a new way to do it, and that's why that it progressed so much.
There was one story I heard. I'm sort of going slightly off at a tangent now, but I found it quite interesting, in that Buddy was the sort of guy who sometimes would perhaps during a family meal or just after a family meal, he would just have to go and disappear in his car and come back basically with a song.
Right, Right. He could come up with one really, really quick. Amazing how fast that he could put it all together. And yes, I've heard that story too.
I've read, there's a great quote in this biography that I'm reading now. I thought this, to me, perhaps sums it up for a lot of people. This guy, Philip Norman, says, like John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards and Eric Clapton, I was a British boy whom Buddy rescued from monotony, boredom and pessimism and pointed to a dazzling better way. And I thought, wow, that is... For somebody to say that, that's pretty strong, isn't it?
That is, it's awesome.
What age did you realise that Buddy was pretty big or going to be pretty big?
You know, I didn't really realize it that much until we saw the Ed Sullivan show. We never missed church, but that night we missed church. And we stayed home and watched Buddy on the Ed Sullivan show.
Wow.
And I guess it was at that point, yeah.
Wow. An Ed Sullivan show, that was the place to be, wasn't it? I guess.
Right.
How exciting. I guess it was a family gathering around the TV, was it?
Right, I remember it like yesterday.
Really? Wow. Very, very, very special. I think he did one or two Ed Sullivan shows.
Right, I heard he did too.
Yeah, two was it? Yeah. Were you close to Buddy? I guess you were.
Oh yeah, he used to carry me around and sing to me, and we would go on trips and stuff. He liked to fish, and so my parents would take us all on a fishing trip, and I remember it. It was awesome.
Oh, brilliant! And he was a nice guy, wasn't he?
Right, he was just down to earth. I looked at him as an uncle. Like I said, I didn't really realize he had gotten so big with music until this Ed Sullivan show came along.
There was one interesting quote I got reading through a biography. I just want the world to remember the name Buddy Holly.
Yeah, it's. I think they do. Yeah, because so many people still come here to Lubbock and think it's a fantastic place to go and visit. I try to show them around a lot of times when I can.
Look, I've just got to build up the confidence from flying. That's all. I'll do it at some stage. Hopefully, it'd be great. It'd be amazing, though. But we all know the what happened to Buddy. If he'd survived that plane crash, how do you think his career would have panned out?
I think he would have still been writing and singing and creating music that you wouldn't even dream of. A new type of music, probably. And he would have had that recording studio that he wanted to build, that he had plans to build here in Lubbock. He was going to maybe his mother and dad, and it was going to be a big house and a recording studio on it.
Wow.
And he's done that.
Wow. And yes, he had the imagination and drive to do that, didn't he, really?
Yeah, he had those dreams, and he went for them.
Yeah. And do you wonder whether, again, had Buddy survived that crash, whether you would have somehow worked with him musically?
I'm sure I would have. No doubt about it.
It was when you were around 13 that you started to... I think you were at 9, weren't you, when Buddy died? You were around 13 when you were beginning to feel music was your way forward too.
Right. That's when I wrote my first song.
Your inspiration at the time, or influences at the time, Sherry, I guess it was gospel, country and a bit of blues.
Right. I've always been into the rock and roll, probably a little more so than country, but also into country and blues for sure, because I'm now recording a blues album.
Wow. Is this original material or covers?
Yes, just about every song on there is going to be original, except my dad wanted me to do one right before he passed away. Well, I did a song for him, and it was called, remember that song, I Found My Thrill on the.
Oh yeah, brilliant. Fats Domino.
Yeah, he loved that one.
That's a cracking tune. Fats Domino, he was great too, wasn't he?
Yes.
They were all great, and I suppose that's yeah. With Buddy, he obviously got to know a lot of the big names, or worked with them, or toured with them. But you've certainly met quite a few too, haven't you, on your career path?
That's correct. It was really nice I did a concert in the 80s, like 86, and Del Shannon and Bo Diddley, actually, they talked to me backstage. I was on the same venue that they were on, and the Crickets and Carl Perkins. It was all an awesome event.
Wow. When was that? How far back was that?
I think that was in 1986. It was called the Budfest concert here in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh my gosh, that must have been absolutely amazing.
It was fun.
Wow. And you've also toured with or played with JP Richardson Jr.
Oh yeah, he's cool. He was really cool. He used to walk me out on stage and introduce me. We did we relived the winter dance parties with John Mueller. He was doing part of Buddy, and JP Jr. was on the tour. He was a great guy.
And I guess he does some of the bopper stuff.
He sure does. It was cool to watch him to go out on stage and say, "Hello, baby."
Oh, yeah. He was quite a character, the Big Bopper, I guess. A bit larger than life character kind of thing.
Yeah, they say JP was a lot like his dad.
Oh, that must be amazing. What's the other one? There was Big Bopper did quite a few decent. White Lightning, I think he didn't he, as well? That was a cracking.
That his son would go out and do that song too. He did pretty much all of his dad's songs.
Brilliant. Would that be one of your musical career kind of highlights?
Probably so. One of them, yeah. I've got many, yeah.
And you're really, Sherry, from about the age of 13, your music has taken up most of your life.
Yeah. I've been writing a lot of songs, and we moved to Nashville, and I'm signed with a company there, and then for a while, and then moved back to Lubbock. Company couldn't quite get it off the ground.
And do you have any favourite musicians right now?
Oh, mercy, there's so many. I've always been a big fan of Tina Turner, and I like to read the Franklin and some of those blues ladies back in those days.
Yeah.
Like Janis Joplin.
Oh my gosh, Janis Joplin. There's the magic of music, it's fantastic.
Right.
Do you find that over time that although you love a lot of music and a lot of acts, do you find that some rise to the surface more than others? In a certain year, then another period you're a little bit more into, I don't know, Janis Joplin, and then you may at some stage be a bit more into soul, Aretha Franklin, or.
I go through phases like that. People that I like that would influence me, even like pop ones, even like Barbra Streisand going up doing. I like that kind of music also.
Yeah. And I mean, you've cut a few CDs yourself.
It's true. Yes, we did a Look at Your Buddy's Eyes album. That was kind of what started it off, and my husband and I, and also we did a country album. It's called Santa Fe Lights. And I wrote most of the songs on that. And I did a gospel album, and then I did some things with the family albums that we did. My dad started me recording back in probably 1980. And when we recorded that Holly's House of Family album, that's what started that.
Right. And you were kind enough to pass by me the tracks from your Buddy album, which well, what can I say? It's fantastic, you know, and it's it sounds good, but you can also feel, you know, the passion and the love.
We recorded that over in England, and it's called Sherry Holley Remembers. And I'm with Sherry Holley, involved. They're also called the Baldy Holly Band.
Ah, yes.
You guys know them. They're really doing well over there in England.
Yeah. I follow them on Facebook, and yeah, they're pretty active, and they're good, aren't they? They sound good, and
they're awesome.
Yeah. And I guess it's the more acts we have like that, obviously the better, because it's keeping everything alive.
It's true, yeah. Those guys are coming over here in July, and we're going to do some gigs over in Iowa.
Wow. And the thing I find quite interesting too, because I've been playing for quite a few years, and it's amazing how many people of us, not of a certain age, you know, younger people, still are well into the rock and roll years, you know, and Buddy, of course, which is quite a nice feeling.
Yeah, it always makes me really happy when I hear these youngsters come in and say, you know, making teenage kids and stuff say, oh yeah, we love that music. And some of them are musicians themselves, and so they were inspired by my Uncle Buddy. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And music's your great love, but you're quite creative in lots of other areas too. Well, thank you. I do artwork and mosaics and so forth.
Yeah. It looks, having gone on your website, it looks quite impressive.
Thank you.
I might have to put an order in myself, I think.
Well, I'd be happy to make you one.
And so you've got the Baldy Holly Band over this year, did you say, Sherry?
Yes, we're coming this year in July.
Oh, nice. So I guess, and any other plans? You're still working on the blues album?
Yes, we only like about 2 or 3 songs, and we're going to be finished with the album. I'm planning to have it out by the summer.
Nice. I'm going to have to definitely get a copy of that at some stage.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'd be great. And yeah, and then next year, a little bird tells me, well, it was you actually, I think, who tells me that you may be over in the UK.
Yes, I'll be singing with Jamie, the Baldy Holly Band, and we'll be doing a gig over there again, maybe several. I'm not sure, but they got plans for that, so that'll be next year.
Nice. Oh, it's great. Well, if I don't catch you in Texas, I'm going to have to catch you over here, definitely.
That'd be cool.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Sherry. It's lovely. I'd better let you go because I'm aware that we're heading towards the hour mark and there's no stopping me, really. So I better stop now, but maybe we can do it again at some stage.
Let's do that. I've enjoyed talking with you, Paul.
Oh, that's great. All the very best, Sherry, and let's keep in touch. But thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Good to talk to you.
And you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.